What weight, Conor, are you going to do? I'm going to do 170, as you know. I'm a big boy, a lot bigger than before. Okay, well, we're going to offer you this opponent. Yes, no problem, I accept. Day after day after day. No problem, we'll send the contract. Excellent, it's a great matchup, that's a great matchup, that's a great matchup. That's all you ever heard about out of me. And no contract came. And that's kind of where I'm at. Still here in this limbo. I know my manager is out there in Las Vegas on Monday, face-to-face meeting. I hope a respectable offer comes through. I'm notoriously good to deal with. I'm an honest man. I admire fairness. I'm sure we can get it done. And there you go. I assume the vibes I'm getting, and I don't mind it at all, is the BMF contest, which was on this week, a rematch between Holloway and Oliveira. Maybe it's me and that for the next one. So we will see. You know, it's all taken shape.
Was, as the fight progressed into the later rounds, could Max Holloway find a way to get a finish? Because he clearly needed one. The answer to that, of course, was no. Charles Oliveira, Dude Bronx, is the BMF champion of the world, and he made it look easy.
That was complete domination, Michael. I thought coming into this fight, there was going to be moments where Max was in trouble, moments where he might be on the fence, might be on his back, but I didn't think it was going to be 25 minutes. We've never seen Max dominated like that. Charles looked possessed out there. He walked Max down, got his back to the fence, and with these awkward takedowns, it wasn't fundamental traditional wrestling. He just powered him to the ground with hip tosses, body locks, and Max had no answer for the takedowns.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that we talked about leading up to this fight, and Charles just executed all the X's and O's that we said that he would need to do in order to become the BMF champion tonight. He did all those things. He marched forward. He landed the more significant, powerful strikes throughout the fight. He was aggressive like we knew he would need to do, and that strength was on display.
The gate tonight was $8.3 million. Attendance 19,480. It was sold out. 4 performance of the night bonuses: Bellato, Montez, Rodriguez, and Dober.
Dana, dominant work from Charles Oliveira, but maybe not exactly the fight the crowd was anticipating or looking for. What were your thoughts on the way the main event played?
I don't know if anybody was expecting that. I mean, the way he body locked him and took him down so easily and absolutely dominated him on the ground. I thought there'd be a lot more stand up, and I thought that Max would do a better job at defending the takedown. And if he got on the ground, he'd at least pop up a couple, 3 times during the round, but total domination.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the goal of the sport is to win fights, right? But when it's a BMF title fight, do you feel like there's a unwritten rule that you got to fight a little bit differently, that you got to make it a stand-up war and not have a grappling-based approach?
Well, I think you'll have those type of guys, but the goal at the end of the day in every fight is to win. So he did exactly what he needed to do to win. And I think probably, you'll have to ask Max, but in training camp, they're probably expecting, if you've seen Charles fight, he's not afraid to go toe-to-toe, stand up, and, they obviously really believed that if they took him down to the ground, tonight would happen.
Bro, I got 10 text messages going. That tells you how great Ilya Tapori is. Because he went through him
like a knife through butter. I mean, we're talking about a generational talent in that guy. I mean, I love the fact that Oliveira called for a fight at the White House. Please find the man a dance partner. Yeah. But who?
I don't know who.
But who? Well, who other than Taporia, right? Taporia is busy with Gaethje.
Yeah.
Who?
Well, right. Arman Tsarukyan is not going to fight him in a rematch.
Arman would not fight him for the second time. Why?
Well, he would if they gave it to him.
Well, when you seem to be about to get a title fight, why fight this dude?
Yeah. Well,
because it's a BMF title fight. But I mean, could you really set that up? I mean, Tsarukyan's been out for so long. It's been so much controversy around him. He just got in a brawl at a wrestling match.
He's crazy,
he's a crazy man.
Sometimes, I ask you about Conor McGregor, and that doesn't happen, but it does seem like the situation is there, that it's possible. Is that something that is even on your mind? Do you think about that? What is your reaction to even just the name Conor McGregor when he throws out there BMF, 170 pounds? Is that even on your radar on a night like this?
For real, I want the title. I want that lightweight belt, and that's what I want. Listen, I did what I needed to do. I got it. That's what I want to do, and I tell people this. Let Diego figure this out, okay? But if it's maybe for something or maybe for the money, we'll do it. I think he wants it more than I do right now, doesn't he?
That was complete domination, Michael. I thought coming into this fight, there was going to be moments where Max was in trouble, moments where he might be on the fence, might be on his back, but I didn't think it was going to be 25 minutes. We've never seen Max dominated like that. Charles looked possessed out there. He walked Max down, got his back to the fence, and with these awkward takedowns, it wasn't fundamental traditional wrestling. He just powered him to the ground with hip tosses, body locks, and Max had no answer for the takedowns.
Oliveira dominates Max Holloway by decision. Not the most fun fight to watch. For the first, here's what I'll say about this. A lot of people are saying, why aren't you crashing out the way you were against Chimaev and Makhachev? Because JDM's one of my favorite fighters. Duplessis is one of my favorite fighters. So seeing it happen to them hurt more. I also think Oliveira's wasn't as bad as theirs. At all. Because for the first 2 rounds, he was fucking destroying Holloway on the ground. Out grappling him into every spot, get into positions where he nearly had the rear naked choke on so many occasions, nearly had the arm triangle at one point on Holloway, smashing him with elbows from top position, smashing him with elbows from the back as well. Like, he really did go for like a lot of damage in the first 2 rounds, but in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you were thinking to yourself, this is for the BMF belt, and you're laying there in half guard on top. Damage him, you know? So I'll see both. I'll see both of this. Even though I was correct, Holloway can't grapple.
This matchup between Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira just wrapped up, and what we witnessed was absolutely incredible. The thing is, way before these two stepped into that octagon, the fight community was completely torn. We're talking about a perfect split down the middle here. Every single analyst, former champions, guys who've been in there and felt that pressure, they all came forward with these rock-solid predictions. Every one of them was convinced beyond any doubt that they had this stylistic puzzle completely figured out. We weren't dealing with some throwaway opinions here either. These were in-depth analyses from the sharpest minds in the game. Now that we've got the actual results sitting right in front of us, it's time to dive deep and see which predictions ended up being pure gold and which ones completely crashed and burned like a house of cards.
Okay, so the game plan for Max Holloway is going to not allow himself to be pushed up against the fence. If you saw the co-main event last week with Marlon Vera and Daniel Martinez, Marlon was trying to swing, but Martinez was using beautiful footwork to kind of avoid those swarms and those bombs from Chito Vera, right? Of course, Chito cut the cage off in the 3rd round and was able to do some damage, right? That's what Charles Oliveira is going to have to do here, because Max Holloway isn't going to be running, because he's not that type of guy. He believes in himself, but he will cut angles, he will use educated and intelligent footwork, and he will stay out of harm's way. Charles Oliveira wants to walk forward with a blitz and then get a hold of you with a body lock, drag you down, jump on your back, get a takedown, single leg, whatever it is. And then from there, he goes to work, and you're in his world. And that's not where...
Former middleweight king Michael Bisping brought this fascinating perspective to the table about how this whole thing would unfold. His entire theory revolved around one game-changing element: location, location, location. Bisping broke it down crystal clear, explaining that if Max Holloway wanted to walk away with his hand raised, he absolutely had to use his footwork and never stop moving to stay off that cage. This is where Bisping's breakdown got really compelling, because he pinpointed that when Holloway got stuck with his back to the fence, that's exactly when Charles Oliveira transforms into an absolute nightmare. Through all his years inside the cage and breaking down fights, Bisping figured out that Oliveira's sweet spot was pushing forward with that explosive athleticism, locking up the body or shooting for legs, then dragging this fight to the mat where his world-class grappling could take over. Just imagine it, the moment Oliveira's wrestling got this thing to the canvas, we'd be playing entirely by his rules, in his realm where he's destroyed countless elite-level opponents.
Doesn't matter who you are. Max Holloway can defend the submission. Of course he can. Max Holloway can do submissions as well. And I'm not saying that Max Holloway can't drop him and get a rear naked choke like George St. Pierre did to me, right? When you get dropped, your equilibrium is rocked and you don't know what's going on. However, I do think that Charles Oliveira will struggle. I do think Max Holloway is the better puncher. I do think he has faster hands. I think he has better striking in general, better ringsmanship, better craftsmanship, better understanding of the geography inside the octagon, and the straight shots that Max predominantly throws will keep Charles Oliveira at bay, and Max Holloway will slowly start to take over the longer the fight goes. So I got Max Holloway getting a stoppage around round.
But right now, I might be completely wrong about this. Moving forward with his thorough examination, Bisping ended up picking Holloway when decision time arrived. Look, Bisping's been around the block. He completely understood that Oliveira stayed incredibly lethal with those submissions and that danger was always hanging over every single ground exchange, but he was convinced that Holloway owned the clear edge in the stand-up war. Looking at both guys' arsenals, Holloway's lightning quick hands, his crisp and more polished boxing technique, and his superior control of space and timing in that octagon would slowly take over as time ticked away. With that particular advantage in the striking realm, Bisping called it that Holloway would systematically break Oliveira down with consistent punishment and output, finally getting a finish around the fourth frame when all that damage and relentless pressure would begin taking its toll.
Charles Oliveira. The first time in my distinguished career of putting the hex on somebody, I'm putting it on Charles. I have never picked Charles Oliveira in a fight, ever. I have never picked against Max. And how is Charles going to do it? Let me tell you one thing that nobody's considering. Look, if you end up stuck on your feet with Max Holloway for 25 minutes, that is going to be miserable. But Charles doesn't have to. And let's just say it does turn into a grappling contest. If Charles gets on top of Max, Charles is likely to have some good minutes. He's likely to be able to keep him there. And I don't think that this is a ground and pound situation or this turns into a big ground contest. If he can just steal right in 5 rounds, if he can steal 3 takedowns.
Those rounds probably go his way. Chael Sonnen, who's never afraid to go against the grain, took a completely different route with an aggressive prediction backing Oliveira to pull it off. Sonnen was brutally honest right from the start, admitting this was genuinely unusual territory for him, explaining that during his entire run of making fight predictions and picks, he'd basically never picked Oliveira to win his previous bouts and had almost never gone against Holloway's established success rate. But here's the critical part of his thinking. He was convinced the major element everyone else was missing was Oliveira's seriously undervalued wrestling control and ground dominance. Sonnen made a compelling case that standing right there exchanging leather with Holloway for 25 straight minutes would be complete suicide for anyone at 155. The beautiful thing was, Oliveira didn't have to play that risky game whatsoever. From Sonnen's strategic perspective, just a handful of perfectly timed takedowns spread throughout the fight could easily be enough to dominate whole rounds, shift critical momentum with the judges, and give Oliveira exactly what he needed to walk away victorious.
Bronx, one of my favorite fighters to watch. This dude's my favorite fighter to watch. Fucking sick. One of the best jiu-jitsu guards in the game. He's been around for a long ass time. Been in the UFC since 2010, 16 years. been in the UFC. Taking on Max Bless, another one who's been in the UFC. This is a good BMF fight. Max Bless got in the UFC when he was 4-0. He had four professional wins. He was back in the UFC. He made his debut against Dustin Poirier, UFC 143, when Nick Diaz fought Carlos Condit, for the real OGs that know it out there. When he made his debut. We got two vets going at it, 5 rounds. I think Max Bless get it done. Max Bless is so good at winning these 5-round fights. He's so good at staying busy from the outside. He's so good at pacing himself for 5 rounds. His fight IQ is so good when he hurts people. He doesn't throw all his chips in.
Meanwhile, Tim Welch, respected coach and fight analyst, had given Oliveira major props as truly one of the most thrilling competitors in the entire sport, specifically calling out his incredibly lethal guard game that surprised so many victims during his extensive, proven UFC run spanning years of championship-level competition. Despite all that genuine respect for Oliveira's abilities though, Welch went with Holloway when it mattered, thinking that his deep background in 25-minute title fights, his non-stop activity and forward pressure from distance, and his documented capability to pace himself through long, brutal wars would let him edge out a decision when that final bell rang. He brought up some harder-to-measure elements that get missed in pure technical analysis. Holloway's battle-tested heart that's been proven over and over, plus his fight leadership and knack for dictating tempo as deciding factors that would push him through the most dangerous situations when things got sketchy.
I think that Holloway's a little bit of a better striker. That being said, I think Oliveira's striking has improved a lot, and he's something that I think he's done is his mentality has improved a lot over the years. I think now he's much more willing to exchange. The thing is, Oliveira is much more dangerous on the ground. I think this fight will end up in a couple of grappling exchanges, and I think that Oliveira will win the grappling exchanges. So in my opinion, I think right now,
I believe all of that factors in. Tom Aspinall, the climbing heavyweight prospect with keen fight insight, viewed this matchup through a totally unique perspective compared to most observers. He admitted straight up that Holloway was the cleaner, more refined striker with superior boxing basics, but he caught something significant, that Oliveira's stand-up had improved dramatically throughout his journey, and maybe even more crucial for this specific fight, his confidence and psychological strength had developed and become more unbreakable through all his wars. Aspinall thought that Oliveira would actively hunt for ground positions where everything changed completely, where he became more dangerous than virtually everyone at 155, and he called it with certainty that during a couple pivotal grappling moments when things hit the canvas, Oliveira would emerge victorious from those deciding scrambles and eventually lock up the victory through his elite level mat work. I expect this to get wild early in the fight.
I think Oliveira's going to take a little bit of a beating first, get peppered a little bit with some punches, but then sooner or later he's going to walk him down. He's going to get him to the floor and he's going to submit him in round 3. My verdict is Oliveira submission round.
Aspinall continued by forecasting in much more precise terms that momentum would gradually swing toward Oliveira's side as time moved on and both guys found their groove. He anticipated Holloway starting strong with his feet during that opening round, connecting clean with his better boxing skills and jumping out to an early advantage. But Aspinall was convinced that Oliveira would survive that opening assault, eating those strikes with his enhanced toughness, constantly moving forward with unrelenting aggression, and finally forcing his wrestling when the chances came up. Aspinall's exact call had Oliveira getting a takedown during a pivotal exchange and wrapping up the fight via submission in round 3, really highlighting the Brazilian's composure in waiting for his spot and his absolutely lethal mat skills that have put away so many world-class fighters during his incredible run.
I've got Charles du frickin' Bronx. That's what I've got. I've got Charles du Bronx over Max Holloway. And I understand how the Holloway picks arise. Okay, because I feel like I'm alone on this Oliveira hill that I'm going for here. But I think Oliveira is going to be able to take the shots from Holloway and walk through them. I do. I know Holloway's improved on his power. And in round 3 against a Korean zombie who was really old and past his prime to say the very least. And in his retirement fight Holloway.
On the flip side, MMA Guru, famous for his thorough tape study and confident takes, backed Oliveira completely without any second guessing. He got why so many experts and fans had gone with Holloway, considering his increased knockout power at lightweight and his refined striking evolution. But Guru saw something else, that Oliveira could eat those initial bombs with his tested durability, handle whatever Holloway threw his way, and keep pushing forward with his relentless approach. Looking back at previous fights and really studying the footage, he drew a compelling comparison between Holloway's recent victories over veteran fighters versus Oliveira's complete destruction of an elite-level opponent, particularly emphasizing how Oliveira had demolished Gaethje in brutal fashion during the opening frame when Gaethje was at his absolute prime and ranked among the most feared lightweights in the world. For Guru, that type of championship-level grappling and demonstrated finishing power against the absolute best made Oliveira the obvious choice to support in this specific battle.
I do see in a world where Holloway just peppers him up and Oliveira starts to break, and we can see Holloway, Holloway took Topuria to the third, and Topuria finished Oliveira in the first. I just don't think Max has that power. I do think he has more power at 155, and he did hurt and wobble Poirier early and drop him. I just don't think he's going to finish Oliveira early, and I don't think he's going to have enough power to get that much respect from Oliveira early. Oliveira is very hittable early. People are playing the Gamrot fight, right? I've seen a lot of clips of the Gamrot fight where he's walking forward and Gamrot's stinging him. But Oliveira does fight differently.
Building on his breakdown with additional insight, Guru recognized a possible situation where Holloway could have real success early on, connecting with those precise shots through his better boxing and maybe challenging Oliveira's striking defense. He thoughtfully referenced Holloway's other fights in the weight division, observing that even though Holloway clearly had the power to stagger guys at 155 and damage them significantly, he wasn't convinced Holloway could put Oliveira away fast in those opening minutes, or generate the type of fear and hesitation early that would make Oliveira fight defensively. Guru stressed a key trend, that Oliveira, while certainly vulnerable to getting tagged during specific moments like we witnessed against Gamrot when he absorbed some punishment, possesses this capacity to modify his game plan and switch his tactics during critical points, making him much more lethal and harder to predict as things moved into the championship rounds when his grappling chances would multiply.
So we'll stick back to the faves. Back to the faves on this one. I'm gonna go Max, and 5 rounds. I don't think Dupont's gonna fold or get tired.
Look at the significant strikes level per minute. 7.2. Jesus Christ, one of the highest I've seen.
You don't stop.
But he's got the most strikes in the UFC history.
Yeah, you don't stop. So I think it's gonna be Max. How he wins? Yeah, I don't want to say it. I don't want to see it, but I just. Sometimes, like when I watch this, I don't know how to explain it, how I see it in my head to people. So this is why I have to break it down with layman's terms, and I don't want to sound repetitive because a lot of this is repetitive stuff. Like we're fighting, we're using the same systems when it comes to jiu-jitsu, wrestling, kickboxing, boxing to fights. There's only so much that can be done. Well, it's infinite, but there's certain patterns that repeat themselves. They're recurring patterns in this game constantly. So when I see a fight like this, I can just look at it and just like, and I just look at silhouettes of them or their fighting styles, and I kind of just piece it together in my mind. And
I just see Oliveira taking over. Israel Adesanya, always ready with expert striking breakdowns, studied this fight with his trademark attention to detail, eventually going with Holloway in his forecast. He pointed out multiple crucial elements: Holloway's completely unmatched pace that destroys opponents, his historic volume of strikes that nobody else in the weight class can replicate, and his documented capacity to keep that insanely high strike rate going for all 25 minutes without fading. Adesanya broke down with his extensive knowledge of fighting rhythms that, while tendencies absolutely show up again in striking battles, wrestling situations, and ground scrambles, Holloway's unique approach and incredible reliability made him extremely difficult to deal with for everyone in the division. In Adesanya's assessment, when he really pictured how this would unfold in live action, it boiled down to Holloway's accurate striking and relentless pressure across 5 full rounds, eventually wearing Oliveira down both physically and mentally, giving him the obvious advantage to take the victory victory on the cards, or maybe even by stoppage.
He's gotta be careful because once he clinches, his hips are close, and Charles Oliveira can lock a body lock, a step deep, and dump on his thing. He's boxing, and then Charles comes in to try to shut it down. Max either keeps the range and keeps boxing, or he closes in, forces Charles Oliveira to make a bad decision, lands a knee, hurts him, he goes to his back, and then he has to side there. So with all that, I got the turkey, I got the yams, I got the corn on the cob, I got the collard greens, all put in front of you guys. Now when we look at that, who do I have winning in the main event against Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway? I'm gonna have to go with Max Holloway. I think Max is in his new weight class at 155. I think he's strong here. I think he's healthy. He's only been knocked out one time in his career, and that was by Ilia Topuria, which Ilia Topuria put both these guys to sleep. And Charles doesn't fight like Ilia. You know, Ilia's able to get their position and bop bop and hit where Charles likes to walk up high. I'm edging my...
Then Demetrius Johnson, the flyweight legend with one of the most brilliant fight minds ever, offered a more comprehensive analysis of this stylistic puzzle than most, going with Holloway for his final selection. He pointed out tactically that while Holloway could work in close quarters when needed and wasn't intimidated by that distance, he definitely needed to stay sharp and focused, steering clear of those body ties and wrestling attempts from Oliveira that could completely change the fight. Johnson stressed multiple aspects of Holloway's game: his range management that's better than virtually anyone, his ability to land clean strikes with flawless timing, and his skill at punishing any errors or openings from his opposition. Looking at various elements like Holloway's enhanced power at the 155-pound limit, his perfect health coming into this bout, and his amazing record of being finished just once during his entire lengthy career, Johnson wrapped up confidently that Holloway's approach and championship-level experience gave him what he needed to emerge victorious in this specific contest.
But I mean, Max Holloway has gotten better. He went out to become champion. Charles Oliveira has too. He was able to avenge that loss to Poirier as well. I mean, this is stylistically, it's a matchup of guys that have gotten better. In particular, I think if there's one person that I feel like has gotten better more than the other, I'd say Charles Oliveira. But that still doesn't mean that Max cannot beat him. I still give the edge to Max Holloway in this fight because, you know, because he's so basic. He's a 1-2 guy. And I think that's one of the problems that I have with Oliveira in the past is just he doesn't have the ability to adjust. And hearing some of his interviews saying, hey, if he points down, like, let's go, like I live for that. But you don't want to do things like tactically. I just don't know if Charles Oliveira is as tactical as a guy like